On July 1, 1916, the British Army suffered 57,000 casualties in a single day. It remains the bloodiest 24 hours in British military history. This catastrophe created an enduring cultural memory of the Somme, a narrative of naive, eager volunteers ordered by out-of-touch generals to walk slowly towards certain death. For over a century, this specific battle has served as the ultimate symbol of World War I's futility and senseless slaughter. Yet military disasters of this scale are rarely the result of simple incompetence. To find the truth, we have to look at the strategic trap that forced commanders to authorize such a seemingly doomed operation. By early 1916, the German assault on Verdun was systematically bleeding the French army dry. To survive, France needed its British allies to launch a massive diversionary attack to pull German divisions away from the south. General Sir Douglas Haig wanted to wait until his new volunteer divisions were properly trained. However, the French collapse was imminent, and he was forced to strike at the Somme, the specific point where the two armies physically met. There was no clever tactical reason to fight here. The terrain offered no major strategic objectives, and the Germans had spent months turning the quiet sector into a fortress of deep dugouts and barbed wire. Haig launched the offensive as a premature rescue mission, committed to pulling German divisions away from the collapsing French lines at any cost. To overcome the German fortifications, the British turned to an industrial solution. They planned a week-long bombardment, firing 1.6 million shells, intended to vaporize the enemy's trenches and wire. They also tunneled deep beneath the German lines, planting 19 massive mines designed to blow the enemy's primary strongpoints into the sky just seconds before the infantry advanced. But the plan relied on technology that wasn't ready. Faulty fuses, a shortage of heady guns, and inexperienced crews meant that instead of clearing the path, thousands of shells simply buried themselves in the mud without exploding. While the ground above was being churned into a wasteland, the German defenders remained largely unscathed. They simply waited out the storm in reinforced dugouts 10 meters below the surface. When the bombardment finally lifted, the British volunteers walked into a trap. The German gunners were already racing back to the surface, setting up their machine guns before the first British wave even reached no man's land. As the slaughter began, the British High Command was effectively blind. Portable field radios didn't exist in 1916, leaving officers with no way to see past the smoke and fire of the front line. Commanders relied entirely on runners, pigeons, and flag signals to get news. These methods were so slow that it often took hours for a single report of a failed attack to reach the rear. To compensate for the lack of communication, the artillery operated on a rigid, preset timetable. The plan was for the protective wall of fire to move forward at specific intervals. This system was a death sentence. When infantry were pinned down, the artillery didn't know to stop. The fire kept moving on schedule, leaving soldiers completely exposed. Further south, the veteran French 20th Corps saw more success, aided by much more effective heavy artillery that actually destroyed its targets. This catastrophe stemmed from a total information blackout, a technological failure that left commanders blind and powerless to stop the unfolding disaster. The Battle of the Somme didn't end with the failure of July 1st. It ground on for 4 more months, through autumn rains that turned the entire battlefield into a freezing quagmire of mud. By the time the fighting stopped in November, the Allies had advanced only 10 miles. The price for that ground was over 1 million casualties across all 3 nations. Despite this horror, the Somme achieved its primary goal. The relentless pressure forced Germany to halt its offensive at Verdun, effectively saving the French army from collapse. The battle also inflicted a permanent wound on the German military, depleting its pre-war ranks of experienced veterans who could never be replaced. These 4 months forced the Allies to move past the tactical failures of July 1st. They abandoned the hope of a single decisive breakthrough and transitioned to a strategy of industrial-scale attrition, learning the brutal logic of the Western Front that would eventually lead to victory.